to save all those problems, to head that off, one, you said we should have marriage prep better marriage prep. Number two, I would like to bring out the fact that we need to seek permission from the church in order to get a civil divorce. If I may, for the sake of the audience, up until 83, this Third Council of Baltimore, Decree 126, which some say is still in effect because it's not contrary to the law, says, quote, "We command all baptized married persons that they must not go to the civil courts to obtain a separation from bed and board without previously receiving permission from the ecclesiastical authority, your local bishop. Should anyone attempt this, let him know that he incurs the guilt of grave sin," and that's what you'd need to repent of. Now, that's just abandonment of your spouse. Okay. Now, we're not talking here in situations about grave harm, spiritual, physical, to children and wife, or, the abandonment, adultery, those types of things, but we're talking something less, emotional incompatibility or something along that line. Canon 1692, Section 2, and that's where they say this is a hand-in-glove fit here. The bishop of the diocese in which the spouses are living can, in the light of their particular circumstances, give them permission. The bishop of the diocese in which the spouses are living can, in the light of their particular circumstances, give them permission to approach the civil courts for this civil separation that should be let go and they reunite later on if they can. But is it or is it not true? Is it true that Catholics today must go to a local pastor for spiritual direction and then ultimately to the bishop before they can seek a civil divorce? Is that true?
According to the Code of Canon Law, it is. According to the Code of Canon Law, of course, 1151 to 1155, it talks about the process of separation. But the process is always meant to be temporary because you want to try to restore the common life, the conjugal life. In the first part, it talks about adultery. If the case of adultery happens, they would go to the bishop. The bishop would give them permission to separate. But there's still it's dealing with a valid marriage bond. It's not that it's an invalid bond. Always with
regardless of civil divorce or not.
It's always dealing with a valid marriage bond. So
you're talking about the sacrament.
They're talking about the sacrament. That's why we're not talking about the civil effects. You're talking about the sacramental effects. So these canons are largely ignored both by the couples and by a lot of clerics, and probably by bishop, because maybe they don't know some cases, maybe it's ignorance, some cases they choose not to follow it.
And what they don't know is that they're supposed to be involved with the investigation of the circumstances and give permission before they can seek a civil divorce.
But the people need to know they can do that. I think that's the other thing. They should know that, at least we should be telling them in our parishes that if you're going to do that, that should be at least pronounced from the pulpit. Or
shouldn't that be also part of the marriage prep to tell people if for some reason you think about getting a civil divorce, you must go to the bishop and allow the church to investigate if you have grave reasons or not, because then you don't know if you need to repent of breaking a bond or not. Maybe you are innocent and you were abandoned and you have grave reasons, you can separate, and you're not in something you need to repent for. But you should know that going into the civil divorce.
Of course.
But that's not actually held up by bishops, diocese priests, pastors, or Catholic laity today, mostly because of ignorance.
Exactly. The purpose for that is trying to restore, like I said, you're trying to intervene before the final disintegration of the marriage. Can I help save this marriage? Can I salvage this? As I was being taught in Canon Law when I was in Rome, the first goal is always, can we reconcile the marriage? Can we try to, is there a problem there that's, sometimes you let little, cracks become mountains after a while, and, that separates the spouse. Sometimes it's over foolish things, and can I restore the common life and conjugal life? Adultery is one of the reasons given. Other reasons were given because of mental instability, maybe the person's having a psychotic break or whatever, in case of danger to the children, stuff like that. But it was always meant to be temporary. That's the reason why we're trying to restore the common life of the family, because marriage is considered until death do you part. It's permanent. So the church always tries to look for the salvation of souls, to strengthen the marriage bond, and sometimes problems do happen. I mean, more sin happens. Adultery is mortal sin, but it's not grounds for annulment. But if the person is willing to allow them to come back, as it says in the canon, do an act of heroic virtue, forgive the sin, and restore a common life, also for the sake of the children. I mean, you're living the life of faith. If the sacrament means that much to you, you want to live the life of Christ, forgiveness becomes part of that too. So, yes, it's a horrible thing for somebody to cheat on somebody. It's because that knowledge was never meant to be shared with anybody. When we talk about since it's sex in the Bible, he talks about knowledge of the person, to know them. Adam knew Eve, Mary, I do not know man. It's it's not just a physical aspect, it's a spiritual aspect to that. And when you break that, it cuts to the heart, and you can understand the pain that people suffer because of that. But it doesn't mean you should break the marriage off altogether, but you should try to salvage what's there.
But even cases of far lesser, not considered adultery, just emotional incompatibility, they're fighting, spatting, finances, whatever, and they said we're going to go to the divorce court. wouldn't it be advantageous as for you as a canon lawyer to make people aware of this, the fact that there's canonical mandate in place currently in the church that requires people to go and see if what they're, because everybody, when you're going through this, it's grave reasons, everybody has that, but shouldn't it be a good thing to promote that?
It is. But first and foremost, I think you should go to their pastor first.
Absolutely.
At least go to the parish priest. Father, we're having a problem with our marriage. Can you help us? If this doesn't work, then let's go to the bishop. I mean, but like I said,
he needs to give permission before you can approach civil courts
Right.
for divorce.
in the course, in theory, but in practice, it's just not done today.
I've got a question for you, Father.
Oh, sure, sorry.
There-
But you're right, Brad. I agree.
There are lots of attacks on marriage